So this is our second week of the minisodes, our third week. I'm going to have to stop counting because there's no way I can keep track of the count of all of them. So this is our second minisode. We're focusing on very niche scientists and just the bizarre topics that they've chosen to study. So mine, all right. I like Laura, you said in yours that you picked a variety of topics. Mine is quite the variety too, but it pretty much focuses on the typical realm of things we would focus on.
Okay.
So my first one, now I will say there aren't too many things in the animal science world that have completely bypassed my knowledge to the point that when I finally do learn about it, it almost feels like I've skipped timelines because it's so big. Like I don't know how I missed it. And that's how I feel about this one. Okay.
What is it about to say?
So the first up niche scientist that I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about the generalization of what they study. And then I'm going to talk about two individuals and then why it's important. So first up is a whale earwax archivist.
Oh.
Yeah, right? It's like a reaction.
Gross. So you don't even think about whales of even having ears.
Well, here we go. So cetologists, because
I think
cetaceans,
that's
right?
Yeah.
Okay, cetologists are a group of scientists they study whales. And the groups that, have the whales are the whales, the dolphins, porpoises. They all produce earwax. However, whale earwax is made of keratin and different lipids. This differs from human earwax because human earwax is made up of secretions from glands combined with dead skin cells, hair, things like that. We have earwax to mainly protect our ear from any dust, debris, or even germs and bacteria from getting into and damaging our eardrum and inner ear. And oddly enough, a lot of sources said that earwax acts as a lubricant. So of course that was a rabbit hole I had to jumped into because I was like, wait a minute. I was like, a lubricant? Well, yeah, because it turns out obviously the natural movement of our jaw from eating or talking helps and aid in kind of like a conveyor belt. You know what? Like the conveyor belt of motion up into our ears. And so having the earwax, it lubricates. Like if you think of your ears, and again, those who are watching us on YouTube will understand this because I'm making the hand motions, but it kind of goes like this. You know what I mean? When you're talking or eating. And so this movement helps the dust work its way out of your ear, and the earwax serves as the lubricant for helping the stuff get out. Which makes sense, but I was like, I guess I just never would have been like, oh yeah, earwax, a lubricant.
I just wouldn't describe that, but that's what it does either, right? Like I'd be like, oh, it evacuates dust, not lubricates dust.
Yes.
I'm like,
yeah, right. Yeah, but it does, but because it's not the earwax that gets it out of there. It's the movement of our jaw. Yeah. But the earwax helps make it happen faster. Yeah. Like it would still eventually probably get out, but not really. So anyway, yeah, there are some lucky ducks then who get to study these whale keratin these keratin, what is it? Yeah, and different lipids.
So keratin is like proteins, lipids is fats.
Yes.
So it's just chunky.
Yep. Yes. Well, so not quite chunky, thank God, because that would make this way worse.
Yeah.
If these were described as chunky, I would have been done. That is one of those words
only
that I
food.
Can't see, and I can't even do with food. I can't. So these earplugs that are made of the keratins and the lipids can be like up around, give or take, 10 inches long, which is about like the size of a small baguette. If you think
candle.
About it. Like a big one, or a baguette. Like, because you got to think of how big it is too. You know what I mean? Much like the rings of a tree, for lack of a better term, this earwax, you can study that, and that's what these scientists do. So when it gets, let's just talk about the earwax here, because we got to lay down the groundwork to understand what this even is. Because again, I was like, how have I missed this in all my studying? Like, how did I not know this was a thing? So when it gets to be about 10 inches long, does it just fall out? No. All right. Turns out, all right, it can't fall out because things like baleen whales, they don't have an open ear canal like we do. Their ear canals are sealed, which would make sense because they're diving underwater. So that plug just keeps building up for life. Every 6 months, a new layer forms. It can either be dark or light, depending on whether the whale is feeding or fasting. And because the canal's closed off, it just stays in there forever. And so over time, these layers start to compress and harden more and more, kind of like a waxy time capsule.
How do they hear then? Like, how is it not interfering with hearing?
So the older the whale and the denser the plug, the inner layers are darker and more compact, while the outer ones are newer and a little bit softer. It's like a really gross jawbreaker, if you think of it that way. All right, so like you were just saying, if the ear plug, because it is called a plug, just keeps growing and getting denser, does that mean that older whales are basically going deaf? Turns out no. Again, how did I miss all? And whales are like one of my, I love whales. How did I not figure this out? But anyway, whales don't hear through the canal the same way that we do. They actually pick up sounds through vibrations in their lower jawbone. Yeah, which connect to their middle and inner ear. So the earwax plug doesn't really mess with their hearing at all. It's like completely
So it's like an
separate.
evolutionary leftover from when they were on land, probably.
Probably, yeah. One of the brave souls that studies these, which this is also very interesting, his name is Dr. Stephen Trumbull from Baylor University, all right? Just down I-35 from me. But it's Texas. Yes, we have a coastline, but from Baylor it's a very landlocked university.
You need to go, like, knock on his office door.
Him and one of his colleagues, Dr. Sasha Ionesco, they figured out how to read whale earwax, basically like a biography, but in the earplug. In one famous case, they examined a blue whale's earplug that was over 10 inches long, and inside it, they found 24 distinct layers. So, I mean, you figure every 6 months, it was actually fairly young. Yeah. Each layer, like we said, captured a 6-month period of the whale's life. And their work showed that whales aren't just like big. And okay, let me back up here real quick. So the purpose, because that's one thing. People don't understand like whales' purpose and that, yes, there's food chain, everything like that. But they very much so what they call, quote unquote, whale pump. So whales, oftentimes they eat deep in the ocean and then they surface, and that's where they go to the bathroom. And so then they leave their excrements up there, which helps. And so it's a cycle, you know? So that's kind of like a whale's purpose. But if we think of them now as studying these earplugs, now they serve a whole other purpose because they're straight up like the ocean historians. So every time humans dump pollution into the ocean, it ends up stored molecule by molecule in those wax layers.
Yeah, because usually pollution is really like attracted to lipids. Like fats in particular are like really absorbent for that kind of stuff.
Yep. So when Trumbull and Ionesco compared modern plugs to those collected decades ago, they could actually see how even stress hormones and other contaminants have increased alongside industrialization and whaling. Whoa. So it like when we knew we hit peak like whaling and stuff like that and industrialization, what they found in those layers completely changed. And so you can not only reconstruct a whale's lifetime, but also think of your Garmin watch like profile of stress. All right, that's kind of what we could do with these whales is monitor what they've gone through in their entire life. So somewhere in the lab, there's these scientists like these two down in Baylor that are carefully slicing through, which is so gross, what looks like basically a giant beige-looking candle and just figuring out the whale history. So it is pretty gross, but why? I guess the big question then is why does any of this matter? So I kind of hinted about it, but that giant wax baguette isn't just biology. It really does give us a more accurate picture of climate history, pollution data, stress diary, because we look at all like the stress and everything that whales are facing with sonar and everything. And so when Dr. Trumbull and Dr. Ionesco started analyzing these plugs, they started literally finding traces of things like DDT, heavy metals, and even shifts in the cortisol that's tracking all the stress. And so they were able to compare. And again, I mean, because it doesn't fall out of their ears, obviously the only way you're going to get these is once the animal passes away. Yeah. So whenever they have been able to find, and it's like we've known that, well, everybody but me apparently has known that these things have existed for a long time. Yeah, I had no clue. And so whenever they would take and look at the old samples, now again, this is a minisode, guys, but did I spend way too much time going down rabbit holes on this one? But when they started collecting like the older and looking at the older example, because museums would have these, but they didn't really look into it until these two really kind of pioneered it. And so when they started looking at the older ones, we truly have an accurate picture of an ocean time machine, and we don't really have that necessarily in other things,
it's
like where it's like the chemical.
It's like an ice core, like what they look at in the Arctic.
Yes.
But it's for the ocean.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So it's important to study these things so then we can see the impact, because whales are important to have in the ocean. And so if we see these species that are declining, we can study those earplugs to be like, okay, what happened? Why? Do we have an estimate on where? And so now that we're tracking also all of these animals and they're studying the migration patterns and things like that, they can combine that to really tell like a more accurate picture of not just whales, which are easy to track. Now they have
and
these earplugs
like
and everything.
This is a long-term study.
It's a very long-term study. We can start to combine those and really paint an accurate picture, because again, when things like the coral reefs and everything start dying in the ocean, that's nothing but bad news coming for humans on the land later on, because it's ocean temperatures rising and all that stuff. So being able to study these things really is a good indicator of that, I don't know,
like ocean health,
canary in a coal mine situation. Yeah, to be able to see what's going on. So yeah, whale earwax archivist. I have no idea. When I read that, I was like, wait a minute, what? And again, it was like one of those things where I felt like how did I miss it? I don't know how I missed it, but I'm so glad I found it now.
Telling it that's your career to either your new in-laws, your high school reunion, whatever it is.
Right.
That's an amazing title. My last guy with the swearing, he could probably say something like, I mean, he's a psychologist at the end of the day.
Linguist.
Yeah. But not a whale
earwax archivist. Yeah. Which is so specific. Yeah. So, and they have, of course, because now Baylor University, the lab under Dr. Trumbull and stuff like that, he's kind of like the lead on all this stuff. And so he has more and more students that are studying it. And again, the stuff that they're finding in the papers, look up some of their work. It's really quite interesting and fascinating, as it is sad. But again, it gives an accurate picture of, hey, we can change this since we know what this kind of stuff is leading us towards. So
very cool.
So yeah. Very cool. All right, guys, go make sure you check us out on Patreon and support us there if you can. Look us up on our social media, Wildly Curious Podcast. And we will talk to you guys next week with another long episode.
See ya.